behalf of Stop Wensum Link, Extinction Rebellion, various political parties, and all the groups that you will see represented by their lovely banners. I'm going to tell you the what, where and how of today, and then Nick on my right is going to talk about the whys and what we want to protect. But first, the housekeeping. Well done. You've done the trickiest bit already. You've arrived. Welcome. We've hired the village hall, which is available to us for shelter, toilets, cycle parking, and parking for people with access needs. There may be some... We've hired the people at the village hall for accessibility parking and toilets and taking shelter when you need to. There may be some people walking around with buckets, having a whip round to pay for that, so if you want to contribute, please do. Thanks to the Swan for allowing us to park there, and that will be where we finish at the end of the day. I'm standing in as police liaison today, but I'm not seeing many police around. Everywhere we go today, we're on public space or we're in space where we have permission to be. So any issues are likely to be related to traffic, and the main traffic is us, but we're not the only traffic. So we will need to be careful to stay together and let other people pass as best we can.
We've got new protection today for pedestrians, horses.
And so, also please don't take offence if you get a friendly reminder from a steward on COVID safety and social distancing or on traffic. When we've heard from Nick, we're going to set out on along Ringland Lane, which is that way, towards a part of the valley which is threatened by this backwards looking road. We're going to bear witness to the array of life that we wish to protect. The arts group from XR have kindly furnished us with some red and white marker sheets to mark out the width of the immediate impact of the road, and we'll spread these out so the area can be seen on the footage. If it's not too windy, we'll have some aerial drone footage and some ground pictures too. So please share them widely using the hashtag #WitnessTheWensum and #NoNewRoads. There are road protests happening in lots of places today because we're not the only county that's going backwards, but we could be leading the way forwards. After taking some moments and some photographs, Helen will guide a walk over the fields and valley for those who'd like to learn more about it. Those of us who are not up to a beautiful but maybe muddy and uneven field walk will come back along the road, past the village hall and the church here, and then turning into the pub, which is ready to welcome us. There's level access and an accessible loo there, and plenty of outdoor sheltered seating, so we can be COVID safe. They may be quite busy, so might appreciate a booking, and if anybody wants their number, it's 868-214. So we're going to walk about 20-30 minutes in that direction to the site. Be aware of traffic. If you can comfortably walk it, we'd encourage you to, but if you need your wheels, that's okay too. So now we're going to hear from Nick Aitchison, speaking today in a personal capacity. Nick lives in Norfolk and has studied and worked with wildlife on every continent. Having reflected deeply on climate, biodiversity and ecotourism, he's given up flying. He now cycles around North Norfolk and walks along the Wensum and writes, speaks and teaches about wildlife and conservation.
So why are you here today?
Are you recording now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Why am I here? Because this is my beautiful countryside that I don't want to see destroyed. I come here every week. I come past just here, more or less every week. Sometimes, most of the while it's on a motorbike, which is a lot more environmentally friendly than a car, of course. But I'm hardly innocent in this, as I drive a diesel vans. But yeah, no, I mean, I love the countryside. This is the only way out now. I live in Cossey. This is the only way out. Norwich used to be like a clock. with all the different points, so you could just get out. You just beautiful thing, a lovely little city. Just drive straight out in the countryside, and that was its beauty. Now there's this huge motorway system, and this is the last link of some of the most valuable Wensum countryside. So it's disgusting, really. It's very sad. Everybody's moving here from London and the big cities. They bring their big city attitudes, and that's just wrong. That's just not what we're supposed to be about.
And how do you feel about the bypass that is soon going to, or perhaps going to be put into?
I've lost sleep over it. I've lost sleep over it. My stomach crunches up. I hate it. I hate the idea of it. I'm so sad they did the last one. I was on the northern bypass the other day. It's common sense to use it when it is there, when it's the right thing to do. But it's been so poorly designed. And I can tell you all those reasons why, but essentially it's been so poorly designed. As well as that, it's just an excuse to put housing estates, building estate, as in commercial estates, everything. It's a motorway. The rubbish that accumulates is astronomical. As I said, I mean, that they haven't. One of the things they said about putting with the bypass originally was to have somewhere to divert lorries, which don't need to come into Norwich. Good idea on that point, but they haven't put any proper lay-bys for it. I know at least 3 guys who are friends of mine who are truckers. That's just absurd. It's just wrong. It's just destruction. And they've planted lots of plastic and sticks as well, and said they're trees. Half of them are already dead. Some of them are doing all right. I'm watching. But they have put some gorse-citrus flowering, and that's good.
Yeah. And how do you feel about how the bypass will ruin a habitat of the endangered bat? Forgotten the name of the bat.
Okay. Well, the first thing is, this is the biggest area for deer just here. Now, whether you think that's an environmentally pro or negative thing, because it's debate, this is one of the best places you're going to see deer, is just here. Okay. As far as the bats, they're quite a secretive thing that we don't know about. The biggest problem is if you don't know and don't see, you don't feel. If you see a puppy, you think, wow, all that thing. If you see a bat, you might see a speck. Gone. That's it. I don't know. They keep discovering. What was it? They discovered some natterjack. What were they discovering here?
I'm not sure. They're discovering everything
exactly.
Weekly. So.
But you have to look to see. Again, on Facebook with I think it's World Wildlife Fund put it on the other day, and that was about new species they discovered in. I haven't read the article yet, but again in a tropical forest. And they just, the more they look, the more they see. So there's so much out there. So everything we do, I mean, look at this. See, look, this is not natural, but it's grass, it's green.
Yeah.
This is human beings.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Wonderful Cretaceous chalk, which filters the water that falls on the land and come up in one of our tiny chalk streams in North Norfolk. So the Glaven, or the Stiffkey, or a number of other tiny rivers which go straight into the sea. If you fall in the west of the county, or in Breckland, you're likely to end up going through the Great Ouse, which is one of the most important rivers in the country, draining the whole of the Midlands. Imagine 13 counties worth of eels migrate through King's Lynn up the Great Ouse to get up into their natal rivers. But much of the water, indeed I'd say a majority of the water falling in Norfolk itself, flows out through Broadland. And Broadland begins in the northwest of Norfolk, in the headwaters of the River Wensum, where I live. The Wensum, let us not forget, is the single most important biological corridor in Norfolk. The Wensum is the connective tissue of the whole of the county. It flows right the way from northwest Norfolk through the centre of the county. It gathers water from the back edge of the wonderful glacial Holt Cromer Ridge. It joins up with the Yare to the south of Norfolk. Now, as a child of the Wensum, the Yare being the smaller river, I'm slightly insulted that at that point it becomes known as the Yare, because the Wensum is the bigger and greater river. So I'm going to use this speech to propose at this point that we change the name of a coastal town to Great Wensummouth, which is its proper name. The Yare is then joined by all of the rivers that come off the back edge of the Holcromer Ridge, by the Ant, by the Thurn, and of course by the wonderful Bure, which comes through the centre of Norfolk and flows out through Breydon Water and into the North Sea. The Wensum is significant, not just because it's the single biggest biological corridor in the county, but also because it is exquisitely preserved. It is one of the best preserved blocks of land in terms of biodiversity and ancient habitats that we have in the county. It is of huge, huge significance for biodiversity, and not just for its own identity, but because along the Wensum we have fens, which are ancient alkaline wet marshes. We have dry habitats, sandy habitats, like for example the habitats that you would find in the Brecks. We have alkaline habitats, we have acid habitats, we have wooded habitats, we have glacial habitats, we have habitats where the chalk, the Cretaceous chalk, is right at the surface. The Wensum is all of the beauty and value of Norfolk gathered together in one place. And it would be a crime against all of us in Norfolk and against the river itself for this fabulous biological corridor to be severed in the middle, just as it's assuming its Broadland identity, just as it's about to join the Yare and become part of the Broads. We cannot allow this to happen. And it's not just about the biological identity of the Wensum, it's also about our identity as people of Norfolk. It's not an accident that the city of Norwich sits where it is. The city of Norwich was not plonked randomly in a place in the county. The city of Norwich exists in the place where it does, with the architecture it has, with the cathedral on the bank of the Wensum, with the castle, because of the Wensum herself. We, as a species, throughout our entire tens of millions of years of evolution, have lived in the context of the natural world. All of us, through our entire existence as a species, have gathered all of the natural resources that we need for our lives from the natural world. And until 3 generations ago, this required from every human on the planet an intimate relationship and understanding of the natural world, because there was no Boots the chemist. Other chemists are available. There was no supermarket, there was no National Health Service. Everything you needed came from the land and came from an understanding of the seasons, from an understanding of the health of the soil, from an understanding of the plants and animals around us. And not just, we're not just severing now biological links in the landscape, we're severing our own identity with the natural world, our own integrity with the natural world. And of course, this is not just to our detriment, it's also ultimately self-destructive. We're all here because we know we've reached a point in the trajectory of humanity where we can't go any further separating ourselves from the natural world. We can't go any further pretending that we're not another biological species made of the DNA that makes up all of these glorious beings around us. We are intimately part of the natural world. And throughout the 20th century and into the 21st century, we have pretended that we are not. We've pretended that we are this God species that is in some way separate and above, and we are not. Our very survival as a species depends on loving and respecting and nurturing and honouring all of the other species around us, the landscapes in which we live, the soils which produce all of our food, the rain which enables that, the weather itself, the climate in which we exist. And the Wensum is the strongest and most powerful, most biodiverse and most beautiful symbol of that we have in Norfolk. Now, one last thing before I hand on to Helen, who's going to lead a walk. We will be sold stories of this glorious thing called net gain for nature. Let me tell you, as a naturalist, as a conservationist, this is poppycock. You cannot destroy a wood that is 1,000 years old. with 1,000 years of interaction between fungi and plants and animals and the soil and the bedrock and the rain and the sun. You cannot destroy that and replace it with a slightly larger area of saplings in plastic tubes and announce to the world that this is a gain for nature. This is a sinful and disgusting idea. And this area of the Wensum is so precious, so irreplaceable, and we cannot allow these ancient habitats, these ancient places, these ancient stories of the land in which we ourselves are integrated with the landscape. We cannot allow that to be destroyed. So I thank you for being here today. I commend your passion and your love, and together we will see this road defeated.